Hello everyone, this is Carrie, and in today's video I'm working on a commission for a customer who requested the look of Freddie Mercury at the Live Aid concert in 1985, where he's wearing the tank top and jeans and sneakers, and she just asked that the hair be a little bit less slicked back. So I'm using a Jeckyl for this, and in this video I'll be showing you some of the initial prep work, the costume construction of certain pieces, and the face up, as well as how I did this mustache, and stay tuned to the end for the final looks. So to get started, I'm prepping the head. I pulled it off after soaking it in some hot water, and I removed the hair and replaced the hair with some black alpaca yarn. So the first piece of the costume I'm working on is the armband. He has like a spiked armband, and I'm just using these embellishments with some pick-me-up tools, and I'm just showing you the two that I use here. I'll see if I can find them online and put them in the description box below if you're interested in any of those supplies. So I just took a piece of vinyl, embellished those with those little cubes, and then twisted it inside out, and there is his armband. As you can see, I'd already made the tank top, so now I'm moving on to the belt. And I'm just taking a strip of vinyl and a piece of jewelry wire, and I'm shaping the jewelry wire into a buckle shape. Just using a couple of different kinds of pliers. So this is a very tiny hole punch that I'm using to pop the hole where I'll put the buckle through. Then for the rest of the belt, I added some stars embellishments like I did with the previous piece, and then I popped some holes through it to give it some eyelets to look as similar to the belt in the concert as possible. I was really excited that I had embellishments that were star-shaped because he did have stars on his belt in the concert, so that was exciting that I could match it that closely. So I'm using this tool called a crocodile to add these little eyelets. It's much easier than having to pound them in. There's a couple different ways that you can do that, but I love this crocodile tool. I'll leave a link if you're interested in that in the description box below. So the previous time I worked on a Jeckyl, I left the eye ring in and I kind of cut it off, and I wasn't super happy with how that turned out. So this time I pulled it out completely and replaced it with some clay. So I had these jeans for another type of doll that I purchased, and they fit them okay. I ended up just cutting them up and then using the fabric to create a whole new pair of jeans, but before I did that, I decided to stick them in some bleach. They got down to this light color that was perfect for what his jeans look like in the concert. So then I'm working on the shoes, and I'm taking some acetone to remove the factory paint, and then I sand them down quite a bit, as much as I can sand them down to give them a nice tooth to help prevent any paint from chipping. And I'm just using the sanding block to do that. I think I picked this sanding block up at the Dollar Tree. It helps a lot when sanding small pieces. So like I said, I'm sanding them down as much as possible, trying to get all the areas on there sanded so it'll really attach that paint. So then I'm just using this white craft paint to give it a coat probably about 4 coats to make that nice white color. And then I start taking some other craft paint to go around and do the detail work using some reference photos from the concert to match his shoes. Then I'm mixing in a little bit of black to give some shadow to the laces. Since it's all white, I just wanted to make sure that those stood out a little bit more. So making sort of a warm gray color to do that. And I'm working on this really awesome craft mat that takes up my whole workspace, and I have a link to that in the description box below as well. I like it because I can just lay down the paint right where I'm working and it wipes right off. Okay, so back to that eyebrow ring that I removed, and this process actually worked pretty darn well. I just used a little clay tool and I pushed some of this, what is this called, Sculpey clay into the eyebrow. The only problem with this is that you have to bake it, and of course you don't want to put the whole doll in the oven, so I just carefully would shoot it with this heat gun here and there until it felt solid. Since it's such a small piece, that'll work. And then I got this little piece of sanding, a little sanding pad, and sanded it down. And then once I added the shading and the eyebrows and everything, you could barely tell it's there, so I was happy with how that turned out. So onto the face up. After about 4 or 5 coats of Mr. Super Clear, I'm just going in and shaping his eyes and just using some reference photos of Freddie Mercury to try to get the facial features correct. The only thing that was challenging with this doll is this particular doll, in some ways I thought the mouth would really lend itself well to Freddie Mercury's mouth because he has those, like his extra incisors, so he's got, that upper lip that kind of protrudes a little bit, and I thought that lent itself well to that, but this doll also has kind of a square jawline that I felt like interfered with how Freddie Mercury looks, so I used a little bit of shading to try to tone that down a little bit. So his head is a little bit more square than I would have liked, but I think I got pretty close. So also in the concert, I noticed that he had a pretty good tan, so I'm using some of this burnt sienna to give him some dark shading. And I guess I'm just starting out giving him the tan, darkening up some areas, and then I'll go back later and add in highlights. And this is just extra shades in areas that, in the reference photo, it's darker, and where it's darker, so I can just kind of try to get his face shape right. So if you're a supporter over on Patreon, this month's video clip or close-up real-time clip was drawing the iris, so I'll walk you through step by step on how I did that. If you're interested in being a patron, the link is in the description box below. So I'm using this tiny brush to shape the nose, and I'm just going darker in some areas where it looked darker in the reference photo, so I can kind of show that shape a little bit better. Adding in some of his creases on his forehead. And like I said, I'll go back and add some of the highlights later. Oh, speaking of Patreon, if you're a supporter over on Patreon, I've released my first learning module on how I price my doll art. So I'm so excited about that. The video is available to festival level patrons, which is the $5 tier and up. So in the video presentation, I show the method I use to price my dolls, so the price is fair to my customers, while also taking all the supplies, work, and experience and hours all into consideration. And I also share my downloadable pricing worksheet and walk through how I use it, as well as give some tips on commission pricing and some thoughts on when I raise my prices, or when is a good time to raise your prices. So my Patreons get tons of perks like that. So like this one, and also real-time videos, step-by-step walkthrough and stuff like that. So, and a lot of stuff I'm working on. I also give one-on-one help on what they are working on. So it's really geared towards those who are trying to learn. So I'm super excited about it. So if you're interested in any of that, check out my Patreon page to see what it's all about. And the link is in the description box below. So there's working on the lips a little bit and just trying to add a little bit of dark in the center to make it appear like his mouth is kind of unintentionally open, because the extra teeth that he has are making the upper lip kind of push out a little bit. So just trying my best to make that apparent, but most of this will be covered up with the mustache, but I still wanted to make it look like him there. So here I'm just doing some shading with some black to give him the little, what is it called, 5 o'clock shadow. So the impression of a beard growing. And I did it in the pattern that, in like with my reference photo, the shape of that. So it's important that you, if you are doing that 5 o'clock shadow, that you follow the shape of where the natural hair grows on that particular person. So going heavy on the eyebrows, as his are. And when using black in particular in erasing, it's very difficult, and so I want to keep, after each mark that I make with the eraser, I want to make sure that I've cleaned it off before the next erasing, because I could just smear it instead of erase. So looking at this, it's starting to look like him a little bit, right? I think so, maybe a little. Darkening up the inner eye. I'm using a lot of that burnt sienna for the shading, and then mixing in a little bit of a darker brown color in some areas. So onto the eyes. Like I said, if you're a Patreon supporter, then I have a walkthrough, a close-up video, step-by-step, how I do most of my iris work and pupils. And last month's video close-up, step-by-step, was the drawing the tear duct in the waterline. So in a little bit, I'm going to be showing how I did the mustache, but I think it's a very quick look, so I just want to talk about that a little bit. So what I did is I took some of the alpaca yarn that I used for the hair, and when you use alpaca yarn, if you comb through it quite a bit, you're really going to end up with essentially alpaca hair. And so that's what I did. I combed through it, and then I used some like Mod Podge. And then I just took pieces of that and just laid it on there very meticulously. Oh, by the way, for this tank top, I added a little ribbon to the bottom so when it was tucked in, it would stay that way. after I laid on that alpaca yarn, then I trimmed it into the shape that Freddie Mercury's mustache was at how it looked. So I'm adding the jeans and buckling the belt, and that is about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you like this video, I would love it if you gave it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. All of the supplies are listed in the description box below, along with affiliate links. So if you purchase from there, even if it's not what I have listed, we would get a small commission for your purchases through those links. So it's much appreciated when you use those. And let me know if you guys have any questions. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.